That analogy really stuck with me, and I think that helped me make my decision to actually go and work in an industry, work in the operations of a company. Hey, if you're new here, my name's Akash. I have a decade of product experience. I'm a Harvard MBA grad and angel invest in startups. On this channel, we talk about product management and tech and some tools and strategies for us to have more meaningful and fulfilling careers in tech. So to run through my background first, I went to the University of Michigan for my undergrad degree. I studied industrial and operations engineering. So I didn't really have any coding experience. I had taken probably 3 or 4 classes that focused on specific basics of coding. One of them was just basics of C++, and we built like a tic-tac-toe game on C++. Another one was on Visual Basic. Another one was on JavaScript. So some very basic sort of coding experience. I had never written a complete application or deployed anything with code. After my undergrad degree, I did a master's in finance from Imperial College in London. This was really a way for me to level out my experience, which was more on the engineering side for undergrad. So I wanted to round that out with some business and finance, studies and courses, which is why I took a master's in finance. After I finished my master's in finance, I was actually initially pursuing a career in strategy consulting. So I applied to the big consulting firms, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, etc., and actually got in through a couple of them. Then I chanced upon meeting the CEO of a upcoming tech company. The company's name is Reliance Jio. So Reliance Jio, for everyone, is a internet infrastructure and services company. So they acquired the licenses for 4G internet and telecom throughout India back in 2011 or 2012, and they wanted to use that to launch 4G in a big way in the country. So I spoke to the CEO, and it was very interesting and very appealing to me. I've always been a bit of a tech first, tech geek kind of a person, so I naturally gravitated towards tech roles and tech as an industry. But I was just fresh out of college. I had no idea what roles I could even play, or what my expertise was, where I could start in a tech company. The CEO proposed to me saying, "Hey, you can join me in my CEO's office, join on essentially the strategy team, and I'll give you assignments that you can work on. These will be like 2 to 3 month assignments within the company, focused on very specific projects and deliverables and questions that they were trying to answer." The other path that I had was the strategy consulting path, and a really interesting story someone told me at that time, which made me choose to join Reliance Jio rather than the strategy consulting firm, was in strategy consulting, you are really making a presentation and making a pitch about how to swim, for example, and how to go swimming. You're reading a bunch of articles, you're doing a bunch of market research of how to swim, and you have to put your make a presentation that you have to coordinate your left leg and your right hand, and alternate from there, etc. But you've never actually swam yourself. Versus working in industry, working in an operating company, is actually jumping into the water, diving into the water, and figuring out how to swim yourself, and then learning that way. So that analogy really stuck with me, and I think that helped me make my decision to actually go and work in an industry, work in the operations of a company, and see a company end to end really grow and fulfill and go through all the struggles with the company, rather than just going in and out of different industries every 3 to 4 months and seeing the world that way. So what happened next was I took on a few projects with the CEO as part of his team. One of the projects was around how the company should be structured, so speaking to the legal team, speaking to the regulatory team, speaking to the company operations team, various different departments in the company, to figure out what was the best way to structure the company. This really helped me to form my overview of the company and the business and the industry that we were in. I took on a couple of other smaller projects around how the rollout strategy should be. Should we do a all India big bang launch, or should we do a region wise launch? Should we only launch in the big cities first? Should we launch in the smaller cities first, where the traffic will be less, the congestion is less, things like that? So coming up with the entire launch plan for how we're actually going to launch our services, and which services are we going to launch, what the priority ranking is, what the business model was for all of this. So my master's in finance really came into a lot of use during this project itself, because we were creating huge business plans which wouldn't even fit on a single computer. We had to split them up between multiple computers to run and things like that. These were some very interesting projects, but these weren't helping me build the depth of skill set that I was looking for. These were helping me go broad, but not deep. What happened was, a few months after I was at the company, the head of customer experience joined the company, and she was looking for her first few product managers. I didn't even know what a product manager was at the time, but she was looking for some young folks who could come in and own an end-to-end experience and end-to-end product from a customer point of view. Uh, because I had worked a lot with the different parts of the company and I understood the product and industry well at a macro level, the CEO suggested to me saying, "Hey, why don't you work with her? And this will give you that depth that you are looking for." So I said, "Hey, why not? Let's take this on. I don't know what this role is about. I don't know what exactly will be expected of me, but I'll figure it out as I go." So the company wasn't taking a great risk on me, uh, because they knew that I know how the company works, I know the culture, I know how things function, I know who to go to when I am looking for any specific questions to be answered, things like that. And I would just have to learn the product management skills and journey and processes as I went on. So I studied a lot. I did a lot of research on the side of the best practices, the processes, how to do customer interviews, how to do project management, how to work with engineering, how to write a flow chart of what the UX flow is going to be, what the requirements for engineering need to be, things like this. So I was doing a lot of execution and learning side by side, which was helping me because the feedback loop was immediate. I would learn about something and try to apply it immediately, and then see, okay, that didn't really work. Oh, I need to do more communication there. I need to sync up with the right stakeholders there, things like that. And then I could feed back and say, what am I missing here? I'm not really good at stakeholders, or I'm not really good at aligning different departments. How do I learn about this? By doing more research around this topic. So my learning and execution were really feeding each other, and this was a great point for me to be learning how to be a product manager. I also had a couple of experienced product managers on the same team as me who I was learning from, so they really guided me through a lot of this journey and a lot of this initial phase of being a product manager. So on the technical side of things, again to recap, I didn't have a coding degree. I did have a technical degree in the sense of having a engineering discipline, which forced me to be good at math and physics and basic sciences and basic technology, but nothing very deep. But what that did was that gave me the foundations to not be scared of technology. And knowing nothing about how telecom industry works, how telecom infrastructure works, I just dove right in, and I would spend hours and hours every week sitting with the construction and the technical teams to understand, tell me, how does a fiber go into the ground? Where does that connect to and from? How does that enable a network of infrastructure and internet access? Where do we have to be connected to undersea cables in Singapore and through the Atlantic Ocean to get access to servers in the US or elsewhere? So I spent a lot of time just diving into the technical aspects of the role, even though I didn't have any background, and that maybe somehow helped me because I didn't go in with any preconceived notions or any expectations of what my skill level was. I knew that I don't know anything, and that enabled me to be open and learn and just be attentive and be a great listener with everyone who I would speak to. So that really helped me a lot. I think I ended up becoming so much of an expert on the technical side of things that I was asked to do the technical training to all the new customer service agents and all everyone in the customer experience team who would work on the fiber business and the fiber product. I was even voted as the best training session that they went through. So I think that to me speaks to an achievement where I was able to go into a space where I had no expertise, but just from active listening and being curious, I was able to build that skill set and become an expert in that field for the purposes that I needed to know, the level of information that I needed to know. And eventually, I had to put all of my execution works and skill sets to the test when I was put in charge of launching a beta version of the product in a closed market. So I was tasked with going out and selling and installing our fiber business and fiber services and fiber product to 5,000 homes. This was a big challenge for me because we didn't have anything figured out, and this was almost the forcing function for us to get the systems in place, to get the technology in place, to get the services in place, everything in place to make sure everything is being done from somewhat of a process standpoint, and what we can learn from to improve, because we wanted to launch to millions of customers when we actually did our public launch. But this 5,000 people or 5,000 household launch was really our first big test. Of course, things didn't go as planned, and there were a lot of failures when we started. So the first 2 days, none of the boxes, the fiber boxes, were being activated. We had some issues with the backend team, etc. So we had to sort of improvise and figure things out on the fly. What I ended up doing was literally sitting all night. I still remember this. I was sitting all night just activating boxes that were due to go out for installation the next day. So I would activate all the boxes beforehand, assign them to specific customers, and give them to the installation engineers to go out and install. The next day, I had to even go in with the installation engineers to help them to actually install the boxes, speak to the customers, where do the boxes need to be placed, what their feedback is, what questions they have, things like this. And this was maybe a 2-month project for me, where I was actually in the field doing these installations, doing these activations. That helped inform so much for me of how the product needs to be shaped and what needs to be changed from a process standpoint for our actual public launch. This was the first time I really learned about probably what we would today call a MVP or a beta launch, and how that gives us feedback on what needs to be improved. How do you incorporate that feedback into your product and processes to make it much better for the next launch? So a bunch of stuff had to come together for me to execute on this project really well and lead this beta launch of the product. We ended up taking longer than we anticipated, but I think what the real effectiveness of that beta launch was that it enabled us to build a version of the product and of the processes that helped us launch to millions of customers when we actually did our public launch. Reliance Jio did a public launch in 2016, and this was the fastest telecom launch in the world. We acquired 100 million customers in less than 100 days after launch. There's been no other telecom launch in the world that has been this fast, and the adoption rate has been this quick. And that meant that our products, processes, and services needed to support that level of scale, which was not possible if we had not done these small beta launches in the beginning. So this was really my first big achievement, and something that I'm really proud of going in not knowing anything about product management, and then learning on the fly, going through this intense journey and intense phase of learning and curiosity that ended up having a very positive impact on the company and on the business. I do think that the best way to become a product manager is through a lateral move. So once you get into a company, try to work more and more with the product managers around you, try to make that lateral move, and try to get a plan in place with a product leader saying, hey, in 1 year from now, I want to become a product manager on your team. Tell me the steps that I need to do from now until 12 months from now that will enable that lateral move for me. And most product leaders, if they see someone being so proactive about that shift, will be positive and will look for that. So eventually, after 4 years at Geo and being a product manager there, I did leave Reliance Geo to go and do my MBA. I did my MBA from Harvard Business School. I was very privileged to be able to get in and attend Harvard Business School, and that it was a whole new experience for me. But if you're interested to hear more about that, here's 2 videos that talk about how I got into HBS and what the process was and what my exact essay was. So if you're interested to hear more and see more about those, check out those videos.